Morning. Thank you for the invitation, Alkash. And it's always good to be back in Istanbul. It's one of my favorite cities outside of my small home village in Sweden. So I'm going to share with you today a bit of an outside perspective on what you are working with in your daily lives. I come from the startup and investor side, and I invest in technology in all its different forms. And I'm not here to give you any answers. I'm here to give you other perspectives. I'm here to give you other views and hopefully some tools in how you can deal with an uncertain future. With all that's happening in the world today, geopolitical challenges, we have unfortunate wars going on, numerous elections, this is a super election year, and with all these technologies that are coming towards us, meaning that it's a great challenge to understand this. And the future is not what it used to be. And for you, mainly being in retail, technology is driving new shopping experiences, of course. We see that it changes behaviors among your consumers. And we have all the buzzwords of artificial intelligence and virtual reality, augmented reality, extended reality. We have the blockchain, we have sensors, beacons, cloud. We have everything that's around there. And I mean, to a certain extent, it's all buzzwords. Underneath this, we definitely have interesting things happening. And that I will share with you today. And I will do that by taking you on two journeys. The first one, and honestly, both of these journeys are supposed to bring some kind of clarity to this tech storm that we're living in. And the first one is across the Atlantic to Kitty Hawk Beach in North Carolina. It's December, it's freezing. The wind is coming in from the Atlantic Ocean. You have a thermos full of coffee and really enjoying that, but unfortunately you didn't bring enough clothes, so you're freezing to your bones. And then I will also take you back a bit more than 120 years to 1903. Still cold, still December. The wind is coming in from the ocean, but unfortunately, you don't have the thermos because that one was invented first in 1906. So you are freezing. It is cold out there. And there's been a rumor going around for months, or years actually, about these two crazy brothers, Orville and Wilbur Wright. You probably know about them. People call them crazy, people call them visionaries in those days. And they were actually working on a flying machine. And they built, they tested, they crashed, they redesigned, they built, they tested, they crashed again. They went to hospital with broken ribs. They came back, they persevered, they didn't give up, and they continued testing these things. They managed to get a manned flying sort of kite up in the air. And then suddenly, in late December, they achieved what was then impossible, thought to be impossible. They managed to fly, only for about 250 meters, but still, it was a great, amazing achievement in those days. What was kind of interesting here is that you didn't really see this in the news or in social media or anything. No media was actually there. There were 5 people in that so-called audience that day. A local businessman, a teenager, and 3 persons from the Coast Guard, just making sure that no one died that day. And what I'm thinking here is, how would you have reacted if you were on that beach that day seeing this amazing flying machine? Would you have been like, oh, well, not special, nothing interesting here? Or would you have been more like, wow, this is so amazing, I gotta try, maybe once it gets a bit safer, because people are really, really dying trying out these things. Or maybe you would just like, oh, I'm freezing, I want to go home. But independently, that reaction, immediate reaction, is one thing. Another perspective is, how do we think about this going forward? What did the Wright brothers think that year on that beach when they actually managed to fly for the first time? Did they see all the things that would happen in aviation and all the effects that would have? Would they see that we would gladly put ourselves in this metal container flying all over the world with a lot of people that we don't know, in crowded planes, going through these huge, sometimes amazing, sometimes horrible airports, spend endless time in security lines, just giving up more or less? Aviation, flying, being part of a global effort. The globalization is definitely coming partly from our ability to communicate and travel around the world. And then, of course, tourism and that enormous boom that's been around for the last 100 years or so. I'm sure they didn't really see that. I'm sure they, coming from an engineering perspective, were just more or less intrigued by the fact that, okay, let's try to fly, and didn't really think that more about it. For me, this is where I spend my days. For 25 years, I've been a technology investor, and always looking at new innovation and trying to understand the prospects of these things. Is it a bubble? Is it trending? Is it interesting? Or is it maybe the next thing, the best thing since sliced toast, as someone said? And for me, this is essentially a big challenge to try to grasp this, try to make sense of crazy innovation somewhere. And I do that together with a lot of people. I do it with fellow entrepreneurs and investors. I do it, really, really love meeting with all these innovators all over the world. And maybe there's one or two in the audience that see that that's an actual quantum computer. I just get hooked on those things. I really, really enjoy meeting with people that are at the forefront of technology. Or the occasional crazy guy, the visionaries with amazing ideas, and you don't really know if you should believe them or think that they are just crazy and totally lost it. But I must say that this is mostly really difficult. It's sometimes really, really challenging and painful, and a lot of stress involved in this. But I can assure you it's never boring meeting with these people. So again, back to the Wright brothers on that beach a bit more than 120 years ago. What would you think? What were people thinking around them? And one person that actually saw something in this is Henry Hap Arnold. He was a young army lieutenant. He was very intrigued by this. In his day job in the military, he was utterly bored. He was so bored, he just tried to find something else to do. Got notion of this flying machine. He enrolled in the Wright brothers, one of their first flight academies. So he actually got his pilot license. And he saw the potential use of this in the military, in the army, in the future. And he was really, really ahead of his time, seeing that, taking that leap, actually trying out this, getting a pilot license himself. And for me, this connects quite well to where we are today. We're in the early days still, so to speak, of artificial intelligence, and with generative AI, the ChatGPTs, the large language models, we really see that this is, on the one hand, you can say, and you see it in the media, this is completely new. On the other hand, me, having spent 25 years in technology, I can really see that, well, it's a lot of the same. Not necessarily the technology, but the buzz around, the amazement, the challenges, the hype, that is still much the same as it always had been. We get intrigued, we get amazed, then we start seeing the flaws. It's maybe not delivering as promised, and as in many of these technologies and the hypes and ups and downs, this is from time to time definitely a bubble. And I can see that. It's definitely clear that it's a bubble when it comes to startups, valuations, and what's being invested in this. There's tens of billions of dollars being invested in infrastructure and training these models. And I see a big challenge in actually getting a return on those investments, at least in the short term. What's fascinating, and then just connecting back to the early days of flying. I mean, the Wright brothers, they were trying and trying and trying, and people have been trying to fly for many, many years before they managed. And many people were doing it, trying to mimic birds, mimic nature, and that didn't work. So what the Wright brothers did was that they instead worked with kites and got inspiration from kites, transferred that to actual flying machines, meaning that you took another direction in trying to solve a technical challenge. And it's the same here with generative AI. What OpenAI and the other companies are doing is that they don't copy the human brain. These large language models are not intelligent as we define it, definitely not intelligent. And they are instead enormous statistical models working with predictability and just teaching them by using books, letters, words, whatever it is that you find online and offline. You combine that with images and videos, and you actually try to teach all these models and bring in so much content as you possibly can. You borrow content from the internet, for example, or as most of us would call it, stealing. And that's one of the great challenges with this. How do we see the copyright around these things? It is definitely a challenge. So with this, what we get is actually not intelligence, but the ultimate mansplainer, telling people things they probably already knew. And the fact here that these ChatGPT and then the other models, they don't actually create new things. They don't make scientific discoveries. They recycle ideas. They use old material, reiterate it, and give you something that's supposedly new, but actually only recycling. And these models, they are hallucinating, they are bad at math, although that is improving. They are biased, depending on what the material that they are trained on, and they are energy consuming, to say the least. Meaning that they are roughly on the level of a decent intern, I could say. A decent intern that could help you. Sometimes they drain you with energy, but they can help you, give you some other perspectives on things. But ultimately, you should make sure not to trust them 100%. So, AI has been around for quite some time as a concept. And this is Marvin Minsky. He's called the godfather of AI. And he said that in 3 to 8 years, we will have human-level artificial intelligence. And I'm just going to ask you, hands up, where we are on the path, where you think we are on the path to human-level artificial intelligence. So everyone, just raise your hands. And then again with the analogy, come on, I can see you. Hands up, everyone. And then you take your hand down when compared to aviation, where you think that we are today in AI, right? Are we at the Wright brothers, early First World War, the Spitfires in the Second World War? Are we a bit closer? Are we coming here? I see. Some of you think that we've come quite far. Don't take down your hand because I took it down. I was just tired. We've got the A380. Are we at the X-Wing level in Star Wars? Some of you think that we've come quite far, right? And that's the beauty of this. I don't know. I don't have the answers here. What I do know is that we need to have that discussion. You need to have that perspective, because we might still be, when it comes to AI, at the Wright brothers level. We could be at the X-Wing level, although I think we're not really there yet. That's my impression. Well, we could also be in the Hindenburg situation, that this thing will crash and burn in the very near future. So timing, understanding the technology and the timing here is essential when you try to understand something new and take something new into your operations, for example. And again, oh yeah, Marvin Minsky, the godfather of AI. I forgot to tell you, his quote that we're 3 to 8 years from artificial general intelligence is from 1970. So not even for the smartest people in the room is this an easy thing to discover and understand. And we can be horrified, we can be amazed, we can panic around these things, but I don't think that's not the approach we should have. I think what I've learned and understood during my years in this is that we should be curious. We should allow people in our organizations to experiment, to try to see where this is taking us, and see AI, generative AI, and other parts of the AI spectrum as a natural continuation of working with your digital strategy. I think it's very clear that you have to be involved in this. You have to stay on top of the development of these things. And as again, timing is very essential here. It is difficult to understand the timing, but don't wait, because the risk of doing nothing is often underrated. It's really, really a bad strategic or tactical choice to wait and see. But don't fear the new. Fear stagnation instead. Don't look the other way and think that this will go away, because it won't. Instead, embrace these new innovations. Embrace them. Be curious about them. Be curious to a degree that you also pair it with a sound set of skepticism. Because, as I said earlier, generative AI is today extremely hyped, especially in the media and among startups. And it's quite easy to fool venture capitalists like myself. And what I see in these companies sometimes, and what I read in media, is that I'm 100% sure that all those big promises that startups are giving you or promoting, I'm 100% sure they will never deliver on that, at least not in the short term. Long term maybe, but definitely not in the short term. And this is independently of what kind of technology we're looking at. Generative AI, the steam engine, flying of course, the car, whatever it is, are getting accepted into society, and we are approaching it in roughly the same way. Like with IT. Started out, let's say, in the 1960s, where we started experiment with mainframe computers. Not necessarily that we did things in a better way, we just sort of did it in another way. And this continued into the 1970s. We started to see some cost savings in this. The big change in productivity came in the 1990s with PCs, where we actually managed to find ways to improve our operations in many different forms. And now we've come to a point in the development of information technology that we are immersed by them. The first thing in the morning we do, the last thing in the evening is checking our phones, right? And that has totally changed our perspective of technology. It's changed the way we build our lives, our companies, our society around these technologies. So we come to a point where these things are defining us, and we come to a point where this is really, really starting to change the way we make money. It's starting to change the way that we can actually see new things coming out of the use of a technology that we couldn't imagine when these things were launched many, many years ago. So it's that point that I'm looking for in all my investments. Where will the tipping point be in actually creating something that we couldn't even imagine? So with that, let me take you on the next journey number 2. And same thing here, broaden your perspective, bring some clarity into this. And we're going to Stockholm, my hometown. And we're going back 24 years, 2000, the dot-com crash. The Swedish and the global startup ecosystems, they were in shambles. We had huge stock market losses, bankruptcies among startups, investors losing a lot of money. And being an entrepreneur then was tough. We were not really, we were looked upon as something obscure, and being a venture capitalist, we were more or less also being looked at as something dangerous, something offensive. So that was definitely a challenge. But then the economy started to grow back. We, in tech circles, we saw the Google IPO in 2004. The promises, the hopes came back to this industry. We finally saw like the light at the end of the entrepreneurial technology tunnel, so to speak. And that was amazing. And then in 2007, the same year as Apple launched their first iPhone, a gadget that was actually laughed on. People really couldn't believe that consumers would spend in that time, what, $500, $600 on a subpar phone that didn't really work or do anything. And, but the confidence in the industry came back. So back to Stockholm. And I was happy in this process that I had two companies that survived the dot-com crash. And one of them actually got listed on the stock exchange in 2005. So that was fortunate, and as always, lucky. Luck is an essential part of any success, I think. So back to Stockholm, 2007, March 2007, and well, this is not really Stockholm in March. This is more Stockholm in March. So, and I got a call from a friend of mine, Martin. He was the guy that founded the company that we listed on the stock exchange a few years earlier. And he now had this new idea. And of course I was interested. He's a great entrepreneur. We met for lunch. We had lunch at our favorite place where we always order the same things on the menu, which is a bit boring, but it's true. And he had assembled a team of engineers that approached an industry that was in desperate need of some kind of revival or restructuring. And he explained this to me in detail. I was really intrigued. I understood the challenges. We took a walk to their office, which was in a small apartment nearby. Small, crammed apartment, about a dozen people sitting there coding, and it was so warm in there. I didn't really realize why. When it's March in Sweden, it's usually not that warm, but when I came to the kitchen, they had the server racks in the kitchen, and was the heat exhaust from that. And it was a very creative, entrepreneurial environment. We discussed back and forth the business idea, the business plan, the strategy they were looking at. I took it to my partners at the venture capital company I was working for at that time. We discussed it back and forth, really intrigued by the idea, but we finally felt that this is too early, the technology is not really there, the market is a challenge, the established players in this market, they are strong. So we turned down this investment opportunity, unfortunately. And when looking back at this, I can see that timing, as I said, is of the essence here. It's really, really essential to try to understand the timing of a new technology. And we didn't get it there. The entrepreneurs did it. And in any investment that I've been involved with, the good ones, timing has been the most essential part, both market timing and technology timing. In the bad investment, we got the timing wrong, and that can be very costly from time to time. So with all these things, I think that timing, yes, when you understand that there are technologies that are happening out there. Another perspective is, what will your competition do when you reach into this new technology or innovation area? How will they compete? How will they react? Will the value chain change in your industry? Will the power structure in the value chain change? How can you see partnerships emerging with your former competitors? Or will former partners become competitors? Will your suppliers move ahead in the value chain, etc.? All these things are really, really crucial when looking at a new technology. The second part in assessing a technology's impact on your industry is, of course, to see it from the customer's perspective. What kind of clients do you have? Are they eager to learn new things, to test new things? Or are they more laid back in thinking that we'll wait and see how this innovation can help us? If they're early, of course, that's a different thing. Early adopters, I'm sorry to say that I'm, of course, one of them. With a chip implant in my hand that was supposed to open many doors for me. Maybe once in a while I can get my hotel key on it. I got a basement full of drones and VR headsets and 3D printers that I don't use. But I really, really try to understand these new things. So if you have clients that are eager to learn, eager to try new things, that one thing, one approach. If you've got the laggards, the late adopters, then you, of course, have another approach to that. The third part of assessing an impact of a technology into your industry is to see, from your perspective, your company's perspective, how can you organize in a different way? How can you improve productivity, improve profits, etc.? And all these things comes together. You understand the technology, you see the timing, you see how they will affect you. And then, of course, based on all this, you need to change one way or the other. You need to change your behavior. You need to reinvent yourself, find new business models, for example. And again, back to Martin, my friend, the entrepreneur, he did exactly that. He took the technologies, he got the timing right, and a set of technologies that aligned at a perfect moment in time, and they really, really tried to make this happen. They pushed hard. They finally, after 18 months, they raised the first round of funding, $20 million. At that time, the founders' money were all but gone. They put all their savings and all their fortunes into this. And there was an enormous risk that they were taking. Fast forward to 2024, they have had a steady user growth. Now, more than 600 million daily monthly active users. And my therapist sometimes says that, Niklas, you need to talk about this. And I have to confess that the company that I turned down was a Swedish company called Spotify. Today, one of the largest streaming companies in the industry. I've sort of come over it, but still it's a bit painful. And every time on stage when I speak about this, I always check the latest market valuation of the company. And yesterday was $76 billion US, meaning that calculations, even a small piece of this would have been good and fine. And luckily, Martin, he has stopped reminding me about these things. He's quite happy anyway, probably because he's the largest private shareholder in the company still. And it is a bit of a challenge, but still, I really enjoy following them, seeing what they're doing with this company. And it's just an amazing story of entrepreneurial grit, how they managed to set technologies together, like cloud computing and streaming, the smartphone that was launched, and big data analytics to provide you with new music recommendations, right? And the same thing happens here in AI. Generative AI. And I think this is where the true potential lies in these things. Not doing like automate things, or doing it faster or cheaper, but actually looking at it, combining it into your organization, trying to do new things. This will not happen in an instant. This will take some time. But we are at a point where all these things can be useful. And not all in generative AI is good. When you search for, want the AI to create a picture, an image of a venture capitalist, you get this scary guy that's behind me here. But me as an investor, when I look at more than 100 companies a year, we invest in more than 100 companies a year, there are a few things that we need to think about. That I see in startups as an investor, I see when I advise large companies on how to relate to these technologies. And the first thing is that this is not a sprint. This is a marathon. This is not short term. You have to be in it for the long term. The second thing, and as Warren Buffett said, that the secret to happiness is having low expectations. Same thing here. Don't think that these things generative AI, for example, will change the world or your company immediately. You have to set the expectations right. Maybe, probably it will help you in the future, right? The third thing is to evaluate and see what data you have in your company, data that you have gathered now, data that you will gather in the future, and use that to build your models, to build your experiences and competencies around this. And last but not least, this is for something that you do centric and centered around your staff, your employers. Don't see this as a way of getting rid of people. See this as a way of helping, using technology to embolden your employees and make them do things in a better way, right? So back again, don't look the other way, definitely. Embrace these things, be curious, test it out, create a chatbot or simplify a task. Just start working with these things. Be curious, because these things are happening now and it's not going to disappear. And the worst thing that could happen if this bubble deflates, then you've learned something, you've learned to look at technologies, being more agile and deal with that uncertain situation, which is perfectly fine. And again, for the last time, make sure to be a bit skeptical. Don't listen to investors, startups, and believe everything that they're saying. By all means, don't trust someone standing on a stage telling you what to do, because that's definitely not the solution here. Be a bit skeptical, form your own opinions about these things. And last but not least, what happened to Henry Hap Arnold? Well, he got his license, he started training other pilots in the Army. He survived 2 plane crashes, meaning that he developed a fear of flying and quit flying for several years. Then he was convinced to come back into the Army and train other pilots and fly again, something he did. And he did it so well, so he developed the US Army's flight capabilities and how they were using flying within their, in their situations and in their fighting. And he also built the US Air Force, and he became one of the first generals and heads of the US Air Force. And so he took this Wright Brothers innovation forward. He was curious, a bit skeptical, a bit afraid of it because he crashed a few times, but he took it forward in a very, very impressive way. And not to say the least, finally, he also was one of the co-founders of Pan Am, which in the 20th century was, for some time, the largest airline in the world. So he really, really saw these amazing opportunities, these second and third order effects that you can get from a technology if you have the curiosity, the imagination, and the persistence to follow it over time. So with that, thank you very much, and enjoy the day here. And please, if there's anything, come up to me afterwards, reach out, connect, ask questions, tell me where I'm right, or even more interesting, tell me where I'm wrong. So thank you for that, and enjoy the day.